Yo, what's up guys? As Future here. You guys saw the title. You know what we're doing today. Today we're ranking all of Mice and Men's albums. Let's go! So far I've made this type of video on two bands, Bullet for My Valentine and Asking Alexandria. If you guys saw those two videos, you guys know what we're doing, but if this is your first time seeing my videos before, basically what we're doing in this series is taking a band that I really enjoy. So far I'm just doing this with my favorite bands. Basically what we do is we check out all their albums from their catalog, from their first album to their last album, and we rank these in these tiers from perfect to horrible. We'll talk a little bit about each album, and at the end of the video we'll see where I've put all these albums, and we'll see if it's a fair rating. You guys will let me know in the comments what you guys would rank these albums, and we'll discuss it. So yeah, man, no long intro. Let's go ahead and get into ranking these Of Mice and Men albums, starting with Of Mice and Men. I feel like people from this era of music, from these early 2000s metalcore, really love this album. I feel like this album is really underappreciated in today's genre. I feel like when people talk about classic metalcore albums, the Of Mice and Men self-titled really isn't talked about enough.
You know what? This is bullshit. This is bull.
I mean, of course, people talk about Second and Sebring because it's their biggest song and it's an amazing song. But overall, man, this album is great. And if I'm being honest, it is one of the greatest metalcore albums of all time and one of the best debut albums as well. This is one of those albums that really started my love for metalcore. Whenever I found the genre, Of Mice and Men was one of the first bands that I started listening to, and this is like the only album that I actually listened to for a long time until I finally branched out and checked out the rest of their catalog. It's got those old crabcore style breakdowns and guitar riffs, and Austin Carlisle's vocals were so unique and cool. I know there's a lot of drama behind Austin Carlisle. Love him or hate him, dude is a talented vocalist and one of my favorite vocalists. Not only did this album have crushing breakdowns and heavy moments, but it actually had some really catchy sing-along parts from Dayshell. Behind Stand Up and Scream by Asking Alexandria, I'd say this is my second favorite gym album. You can start this album when you get into the gym, start to finish, and you can get so many reps into this album. It has that energy. Those, like I said, those crushing breakdowns really drive you to work out. This is definitely my second favorite album to listen to when I'm at the gym. I don't know, man. I love this album. I think it's an absolute banger. One of my favorite metalcore albums of all time. So, I mean, dude, I gotta put it in perfect, man. I mean, the mixing and mastering of it could be better, but also it's an old album. You know, this came out in 2010. The mixing and mastering was good for that era of music. Yeah, man, it's perfect to me. Moving on to their second album, which is also most people's favorite Of Mice and Men album, The Flood. Yeah, I also really love this album. I think it's a really good continuation after their self-titled album because it's not the same album, but it's still them. I think The Flood probably is Of Mice and Men's best album. I really do love the self-titled like we were just talking about, but if we're being honest and comparing the two, The Flood is just better in all aspects. I think the self-titled is just nostalgic to me, honestly. But yeah, man, The Flood, it's great. It still has those crushing breakdowns and great guitar work and great vocals and better mixing and mastering since the self-titled. Also has those great cleans from Dayshell. And the songwriting, I'd say, was just better in The Flood. Better song structures. They actually had structure to them. In the self-titled, there was a lot more just stuff being thrown together, which I think was pretty cool, especially during that time of music. But The Flood is definitely a lot more standard metalcore and keeps to that metalcore format. I think there's a discussion to be had about which Of Mice and Men album is their best album, but The Flood is definitely up there. So yeah, man, I'm going to put The Flood in perfect and in front of the self-titled. I love the self-titled. It has a special place in my heart, but there's no denying that The Flood is just a better album. Next up, we have their third album, Restoring Force. A lot of people also say this is their favorite album. Honestly, over time, when I hear people talk about Of Mice and Men, whether it be in YouTube videos or comment sections on TikToks or on a one-on-one conversation with someone, I've heard a lot of people say that Restoring Force is their favorite Of Mice and Men album. And I'm honestly always so blown away because I love this album and it is a really good album. But man, their best,
you serious?
I feel like most people that say Restoring Force is their favorite is usually because they don't like the heavier of Mice and Men, because Restoring Force is really not that heavy of an album. Austin Carlisle's vocals weren't as brutal as they were in their first two albums. There was a lot more singing, a lot more simple guitar work in this album, not as much breakdowns. It didn't have that heavy edge to it that their first two albums had. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed this album. It has some really good sing-along songs, but I think overall it just doesn't really hold a candle to The Flood, in my opinion. I will say Restoring Force is probably their best album lyrically, maybe with Austin probably their best album lyrically. I don't know, man, it's a really good album. It has some great lyricism, lyrical content. Good. And also, this is not to mention, this is the first album with Aaron Pauley, who is now the main vocalist and songwriter of Mice and Men, years later. But this was the first album with Aaron, so that is a big thing, having him as a singer and now Dayshell being gone during this album. So that's another huge part in it. I love Aaron's singing in this album. I don't know, man. I know a lot of people love this album, and I might get some hate for it, and I might change my mind later, but I am going to put Restoring Force in the great category. All right, now we got Cold World.
Dude! What the fuck?
Okay, let's be honest, man. No one loves this album.
Fuck you!
No one loves this album. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a hater. I don't hate the album. But this album doesn't get talked about, and for good reason. It's just not a great album. At this point in their career, it was their most experimental album. There was a lot of weird stuff going on. I mean, the production overall was cool, and I actually liked pretty much every song, some more than others. I really like Game of War, The Lie, Like a Ghost. Pain is probably the best song on this album. Overall, this album's just a blur for me. I don't even, I just never find myself coming back to these songs, which is pretty sad to say, because I honestly would be pretty pissed off if I was one of the songwriters of this album, because it is very different from their first three albums, and they were obviously going for something different. I know there was a lot of drama going on in real life during that time, and that affected the songwriting process, I'm sure, because shortly after this album, Austin left the band. It's by no means a bad album. It's not bad. That's just wrong to say. It's really not bad. It's just their first three albums are so overwhelmingly good that it's just, it's just meh. Being one of my favorite bands, I can't in my heart put this in the bad category, because I can't put Cold World in bad, because that's not right, because it's not a bad album, but it's not good. I don't know, man. If I'm being honest with myself, I don't like this album, and I don't ever come back to it. So, to be completely honest, I have to put it in bad, because it obviously means that I think it's not a great album. That's not right, though. I love this band so much. Moving on to their next album, this was after Austin Carlisle, the main vocalist, left the band. We got their album Defy. I mean, this album is a completely new album for them, because this is with a new frontman, Aaron Pauley. That changes things. And their sound did change with the vocalist change. But I think it changed for the better, man. They found a new sound that really worked for them. They really got more into that riffy metalcore style. This album does kind of take part of the Restoring Force sound, but a little different. Definitely more modern. I love this album. I love every album on it. I love Aaron Pauley's lyrics. I love him as a vocalist. He is obviously 10 times better of a vocalist than Austin Carlisle. I think Austin Carlisle was just way more unique, and he had some of the most unique screams in metalcore. I think Aaron is just a better vocalist overall. He can sing like hell. Austin couldn't sing, or he didn't sing. And honestly, Aaron's screams are better than Austin's. Austin's were just more ferocious and unique, but Aaron has more versatility in his screams. I love the songwriting of this album. Huge, catchy choruses. Love the guitar work. It's a great album. It really is. I am going to put it in the great category in front of Restoring Force, I think. I think I do like it more than Restoring Force. Next up, we have Earth and Sky. Once again, another huge sound change for Of Mice and Men. This album is so dark. Whenever I listen to this album, instrumentally and productionally, it just has a dark vibe to it. This is most definitely their heaviest album with Aaron Pauli. This is heavier than Restoring Force, Cold World, Defy, and I'd say it's even heavier than Echo and Tether. I don't know, man. I love this album. I love the lyrics. I love the guitar work. Great drumming. I haven't been talking about the drumming, but Tino, their drummer, is a fantastic drummer, and that goes without being said. He does great drumming on every album. I love Aaron's vocals on this album. I really do love this album. So yeah, man, I'm gonna put Earth and Sky in great in front of Defy, I think. Yeah. Alright, man, we are flying through this. Next up, we have their album, Echo. Look, man, I can't even lie. This is one of my favorite albums from Of Mice and Men. It is such a cool, unique sound. It is so different. I mean, this is like, maybe they're like, it's maybe not as experimental as Cold World, but it is really experimental, and it's done very well. I love this album, man. I love every song on this album. Every song is a 10 out of 10. I am most definitely putting it in the perfect category. But I don't know where, because the Of Mice and Men self-titled has a really special place in my heart, so nostalgic to me. The Flood, I think, is their best album. The songwriting on Echo, it can't be denied that it's like their best songwriting, or at least my favorite songwriting from them. At this point, it's really just, it's determined by if I'm ranking this as what I think is better or what is my favorite. Because if we're saying favorites, I'm probably going to put this behind the self-titled. But if we're saying just subjectively what's better, Echo might be their best album. I mean, it has most definitely their best production. The mixing and mastering is great. Everything sounds so nice in this album. The songwriting is great. And it's versatile as hell. Every song is different. So I think looking at it from just a listener's perspective, this is probably their best album. But The Flood and the self-titled, just, I love more, I think. So yeah, man, I'm going to take Echo, and I'm going to put it in perfect. I'm going to put it in front of the self-titled, I think. Love the self-titled, but Echo's great. We have absolutely flown through this album ranking. We are on to their very last album that recently came out called Tether. I did a full album reaction to this album. If you guys want to go see my full reaction to this album, it's up on my channel. I love this album. It is also very different. That's something about Of Mice and Men, man. I say this about a lot of bands. Of Mice and Men is the prime example of they do not make the same album twice. Like, seriously. Every album is completely different. And Tether is very experimental, very different. If you guys saw my full album reaction to Tether, you guys saw that I really enjoyed the album. But I didn't start loving the album till like weeks after I had heard it a couple more times. And I do love this album. It's really good. Although it does have some pretty forgettable songs. Zephyrus is a pretty forgettable song. Indigo's good, but not something I come back to a lot. Love the title track, Tether. Castaway is great. In Rapture is really good. Into the Sun is phenomenal. Eternal Pessimist is like the heaviest one alongside Warpaint, but it's very cookie cutter. Shiver is really cool. Warpaint's probably my favorite on the album. And Integration's pretty cool. This album's really cool as an album, but when you take these songs as standalone songs, they're not very wowing. I think with that being said, man, I'm going to put Tether in the good category all on its own. We did it, man. Let me know what you guys think about my ranking. Let me know how you guys would holy shit. Let me know how you guys would rank Mice and Men's albums. I will leave a link to this tier list in the description of this video if you guys want to go do this tier list yourself. Once you guys do that, you guys can send me a picture on Instagram or in our Discord server, and I will let you guys know what I think of your ranking of Mice and Men's albums. I'm pretty okay with this. I'm kind of touch and go with the perfect category. I honestly don't know which one should be first, The Flood or Echo or the self-titled. But I feel pretty comfortable with the rest of my ranking. I know it's not right to say that Cold War is a bad album, but it's not good. I'll see you guys next time. I think I'm going to do this next with Motionless in White, since they are another one of my favorite bands. If you guys haven't seen my other band album rankings, Bull for My Valentine and Asking Alexandria. Those are up on the channel as well if you guys would like to check those out. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the future.